And here's Enes Kanter, one of those former NBA players, giving Sophie Cunningham the flowers that she deserves.
But I think this game gives you so much that you can use that as a message, and you can use your platform to be the voice of all those innocent people out there who don't have a voice. And I think that's what Sophie Cunningham doing, and I'm a big fan of her, especially when she posted that thing and said, "I said what I said." I was like, "This is the player that I want to be like one day."
Yep. She talked the talk.
And now, Enes Kanter Freedom gives us a clear example of what this transformation looks like. He says he is a fan of Sophie Cunningham because she is willing to use her platform and stand by her public opinions even when people criticize her. You do not have to agree with either of them to understand why this matters. Sophie's comments are now getting public praise from well-known former professional athletes who are outside her team and even outside the main Fever fan base. That shows she is reaching a much bigger audience. It also shows why being called a star is about more than just scoring points. There is basketball stardom, commercial stardom, and cultural stardom. Sometimes one athlete has all three, while other times they are separate. Caitlin Clark is at the center of basketball and attention in Indiana. Sophie, meanwhile, is building a different kind of recognition through her personality, opinions, and visibility around the team. However, I would push back against the strongest version of the original claim. Do we have enough evidence to officially say Sophie Cunningham is the undisputed second biggest WNBA star? No. To make that claim, we would need full data on merchandise sales, search interest, social media numbers, TV impact, sponsorships, and public polls. But do we have enough evidence to say her profile has grown quickly and that she has become one of the league's most talked about personalities? Absolutely. You do not need to exaggerate to see what is happening. A Fever role player becoming someone that former NBA players publicly talk about, whose off-court clips spread online, whose merchandise gets attention, and whose personality creates its own fan base is already a major development. And now we get to the part Indiana needs to care about the most.
The Indiana Fever this offseason need to do anything that they can do to retain Sophie Cunningham's stardom. From a pure business standpoint, they need to continue the gravy train of Caitlin Clark and Sophie. Continue that gravy train.
There it is. The source immediately turns Sophie's popularity into an off-season question and argues that Indiana should keep the Clark-Cunningham combination together. This is where the viral clips stop being just entertainment and start becoming part of the team's business decisions. The Fever cannot make roster decisions based only on how many fans cheer for a player. They have to consider contracts, salary structure, performance, team fit, future roster needs, and the rules for the upcoming offseason. But management would also be making a mistake if it treated Cunningham like a replaceable player whose value comes only from her statistics. The best decision is not choosing between business and basketball. It is finding a player whose value on the court and value off the court work together. Sophie has made a strong case for being that type of player. She brings size and physicality on the perimeter, plays with an edge, and has shown that she is willing to defend her teammates. She has also become comfortable in the Fever environment, where every mistake, reaction, and moment gets extra attention. Most importantly, the fans clearly connect with her. That does not replace her basketball value. When a player already fits on the court, having a strong connection with fans can make her even more valuable. Now imagine the alternative. Indiana lets a popular role player leave and then spends the next season trying to build chemistry and fan connection with a replacement who may or may not provide the same production. That could still be the right decision if the basketball or financial situation requires it. But management needs to understand exactly what it would lose. They would not just be replacing playing minutes. They could also be losing a strong connection with the fan base. That is why this off-season decision deserves more thought than simply saying, keep Sophie because she is popular, or, popularity does not matter. Both arguments are incomplete. Winning has to be the priority. But professional sports teams are also entertainment businesses. When a player brings value both on the court and to the business side, keeping her can be much more valuable than her basic statistics suggest.
If you can move Lexi Hall to free up some money, you move Lexi Hall as fast as possible. Sorry, Lexi. Sorry. You don't really perform for us. You don't really perform. You seem too into your makeup brand. You seem too much selling whatever it's called. I don't even know what it's called. But you're too busy doing other things. Sophie Cunningham.
Where I strongly disagree with the source is the idea that another Fever player should automatically be moved just to make room for Sophie, especially because of comments about off-court business activities. Lexi Hull's value to the team should be judged by her basketball performance, contract situation, and what the Fever need on the court. It should not be based on assumptions about how much time she spends promoting her brand. Players are allowed to have businesses and sponsorships. Sophie benefits from those same opportunities, so it would be unfair to praise her for entrepreneurship while using it against another player without a real basketball reason. This is where roster debates can become too personal. Keeping Sophie Cunningham does not mean Indiana has to get rid of Lexi Hull. The Fever's job is to find the best group of players around Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and the rest of the core. If management believes Sophie deserves a bigger role or a new contract, they should explain why based on her basketball value. If another roster move becomes necessary, it should be explained through team fit, performance, and available resources. This actually makes Sophie's rise more impressive because you do not need to turn it into a fake battle between teammates. Her popularity already speaks for itself. Fans are responding to her, her merchandise is getting attention, her clips are spreading online, her public comments are creating discussions, and well-known people outside the Fever are recognizing her growing platform. You do not need to create a villain out of another player to make that story interesting. The Fever also have an opportunity that many teams would love to have. Caitlin Clark already brings enormous attention, but Indiana can build a roster where several players have their own identities and fan bases. Aaliyah Boston has her own appeal, Kelsey Mitchell has years of history and scoring credibility, and Sophie brings a completely different personality and energy. A strong sports brand benefits from that variety because different fans connect with different players. The superstar brings people through the door, but the entire team gives them reasons to
She's
stay.
becoming a role model off the court. Yeah, she definitely is becoming a role model off the court. When it's all said and done, when her playing time is far behind her, people will look at this period of time and be like, damn, she really stood up for so many people and she didn't back down on her beliefs. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video, hype the video, subscribe to the channel. That means so much to me. Sophie Cunningham, the second biggest star in the WNBA.
And that final claim brings the whole argument together. The source says Sophie's off-court role may become an important part of how this stage of her career is remembered, and then it calls her the second biggest star in the WNBA. I would separate those two claims. The first one is becoming harder to argue against. Sophie Cunningham has clearly become a much bigger public figure during this Fever run. We can see it in the different moments we just discussed. Fans recognize her in public. Her merchandise gets attention. Her interviews become news. Former players talk about her. Her opinions reach people outside basketball, and her personality continues to create viral clips. She has developed a following based heavily on her personality. The second claim, that she is definitely the number 2 star in the entire WNBA, needs much more evidence. And honestly, Sophie does not need that label. The more interesting story is that she has become this popular while playing on the same team as Caitlin Clark, one of the most attention-grabbing athletes in women's basketball history. Usually, a superstar that big can make everyone around her look smaller. Sophie has somehow become more recognizable while playing alongside her. That may be her biggest achievement. Whether she planned it or not, Sophie understood that the best way to stand out next to a huge star is not to copy that star. It is to be completely yourself. Caitlin has her own appeal, while Sophie has a very different one. Caitlin attracts fans through her incredible basketball ability, expectations, and massive existing fame. Sophie has built her following through her honesty, physical style of play, humor, accessibility, and outspoken personality. Those two identities can exist together, and for Indiana, they could actually make each other more valuable. That is what the bar video shows better than any marketing presentation could. Sophie's biggest asset is not one viral video, one interview, one shoe release, or one controversial comment. It is recognition. Fans see her and immediately know what kind of personality she brings. They have an opinion about her, and they want to know what she will do next. People are becoming less indifferent toward her. That is when an athlete starts becoming a true sports personality. The big question for the Fever is how much that should influence their future decisions. Indiana cannot overpay a player simply because people online like her. But the team also cannot pretend that fan connection has no economic value. Professional sports depend on people caring enough to watch games, attend them, share clips, and buy merchandise. Indiana already has one of the rarest things in the league, massive attention around Caitlin Clark. The smartest move is to turn as much of that attention as possible into long-term interest in the entire Fever brand. Sophie Cunningham appears to be helping them do exactly that. A fan who first comes to the Fever because of Caitlin Clark but eventually becomes interested in Sophie, Boston, Mitchell, or another player becomes more connected to the team than someone who only follows one superstar. That is how a big moment can eventually become a strong franchise. So when people laugh about Sophie partying with fans after a win, they may actually be seeing something bigger than a funny viral moment. They may be watching a player build an emotional connection with the exact audience Indiana wants to keep. And when NS Cantor Freedom praises Sophie for being willing to speak publicly, we see another important part of the same story. Sophie's identity is becoming strong enough to work outside the arena. She can create attention even when Caitlin Clark is not standing next to her. That does not make Sophie bigger than Caitlin. It makes her independently marketable. Those are two very different things. If you are Indiana, that should be one of the biggest things to consider before the offseason. The Fever do not just need talented players around their superstar. They need players who can handle the pressure that comes with playing beside her, contribute on the court, and give fans more reasons to care about the team. Sophie is increasingly checking several of those boxes. Of course, she still has to perform. Popularity cannot protect a player forever if the basketball fit stops working. Winning and basketball value must remain the top priorities. But when a player is useful on the court and is also building this kind of connection with fans, a front office should recognize that it has something very difficult to replace. So I am not ready to call Sophie Cunningham the undisputed number 2 star in the entire WNBA based only on the evidence in this video. But I am ready to say that the conversation around her has completely changed. She is no longer simply the Fever teammate who sometimes goes viral next to Caitlin Clark. She is becoming one of the recognizable faces of the larger Indiana Fever story, with fans who are increasingly interested in Sophie Cunningham herself. And if that growth continues, the ranking debate may eventually answer itself. So now you have to choose. Is Sophie Cunningham simply enjoying a temporary viral wave because everything surrounding the Fever is so big right now? Or has she genuinely built the kind of independent star power that Indiana cannot afford to lose? Tell me which side you are on, and subscribe to Basley if you want to see what happens when the Fever finally have to make that decision.